I'm Jasmine Redford, the illustrator of Siegfried Dragonslayer, and you're listening to True North Country Comics Podcast.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics Podcast, dedicated to promote Canadian comic book and graphic novel creators and supporters. I'm John Swinimer. If you want to drop me a line, you can contact me at john@truenorthcountrycomics.com. On this episode, I chat with Jasmine Redford about illustrating Siegfried Dragonslayer. This podcast is available on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. It's also available on the True North Country Comics channel on YouTube. I invite you to like and subscribe. Jasmine resides in Saskatchewan and is an illustrator, copy editor, teacher's assistant, full-time parent, and PhD graduate student with a field focus on graphic narratives and Canadian literature. She obtained her BFA from the Emily Carr University of Art Design and her BA and MA in English from the University of Saskatchewan. Her most recent project is Siegfried Dragonslayer with writer Mark Allard Will. I invite you to listen to his podcast interview posted on December 13th, 2021. Siegfried Dragonslayer is described as an epic tale full of action, adventure, mythological beasts, magical swords, powerful rings, and a treacherous companion. Impulsive young Prince Siegfried craves glory and recognition from his aloof parents, the King and Queen of Denmark. Starting a war with the neighboring country and seeking out the most feared dragon in the realm seems like a good place to start. And so, without further ado, here's my chat with Jasmine Redford about illustrating Siegfried Dragonslayer. So, Jasmine Redford, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate your time. What I usually do to start off the interview is ask the creator about their first comic book. So I'm wondering if you remember, what was the first comic book that you read?
Well, the first comic book I remember seeing myself read was Casper the Friendly Ghost. I think it's a photo of me when I was very young, and I'm holding it open. But the first comic I distinctly remember for myself reading was Secret Wars 2 that I found on the floor of someone's car. And I pulled it up and I looked through it, and I was particularly fascinated by Molecule Man. Good. That's the first memory I have of a comic in my hands.
That's great. Well, good stuff growing up, but I'm wondering who or what inspires you to create today?
I am absolutely mad about Wendy and Richard Pinney's ElfQuest series. They inspired me when I was younger. I wanted to do what they did. I'm also a big fan of Chester Gould's run on Dick Tracy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's just, wow. I can't even, the creativeness of that man and all those villains. Just fascinating.
Let's talk about your latest project, Siegfried Dragonslayer. And as I mentioned before we started recording, I did chat with Mark in an earlier podcast about the book, but I'd like to know a little bit more about your involvement. So can you tell me how you got involved with this?
Well, I got involved in that project by meeting Mark. I work on my own comics. I have ever since high school. Sadly, I don't do much with them. They sort of collect dust on the shelf. But I brought one of my projects over to show Mark at a friend's birthday party. And he was flipping through them, and he said, I might have a project for you later. I thought, oh, cool. And then later, he actually did have a project for me. And we started working on Siegfried together. It is definitely, it's his baby, but I was so glad to be along for the ride. When he said, would you like to illustrate for it? I thought, yes, hitch me to your wagon. I will follow this.
Yeah, it's great work for sure. I was curious to know about the collaboration process. How did you two work together on this?
First, the back and forth began with the necessary character sketches, the ideas he'd pitch for location, what he kind of wanted things to look like. But what was nice about working with Mark is he was so, he was so loose about it. He left a lot of room for me to interpret as I wanted to, which isn't to say that he didn't make corrections or adjustments as necessary. You know, we'd send the sketches back and forth and come up with something we both liked. But he really stepped back and let me take it first in the direction I thought maybe it could go. And then we worked on it together from there. So the collaboration was nice. It was very organic.
Now, Mark said he provided some research. He does a lot of background research, but I'm wondering, did you have to do any additional research? Because this is not like a modern times story. This is definitely very old, let's say. So did you have to do any research to get authenticity in the illustrations?
I did. To begin with, I tried my best, but I'm no historian. I did try my best to make sure that we're definitely, that this is more Nordic. It's not like medieval. I have a lot of books here at home, a fairly large library, and a lot of paintings, a lot of things I could pull inspiration from. And then, of course, Google is your friend. I did try my best to keep them, particularly in wardrobe, generally accurate. Although I'm gonna carefully hedge around that, because anyone who's more of a historian than I am would be able to point out the inaccuracies, to which I will gladly fess up to. And then at some point in the process, I did start to take the research I was doing into location and in costuming and whatnot. And I did start to get creative with it, and I kind of went off in my own direction.
Oh, very good. Now, I was reading about Siegfried the Dragonslayer being the inspiration, or one of the inspirations for J.R. Tolkien with The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. Did you have any temptation to look into the Peter Jackson movies as maybe some inspiration for you?
No, actually, I wouldn't say I was trying to actively keep away from them. I was trying to stay in, to put it generally, more of like Viking mode, I suppose, and to stay away from Jacksoning it up.
Now, this story, you've done a lot of, this has taken some time to produce and finalize. Do you think this is a story you'd like to see continue as a follow-up down the road?
I am told it will continue. That he's working on part 2, which he might have told me about that before, but when he told me about it expressly, that there's going to be a part 2, it came as a surprise to me. What now? Because the first one was so time-consuming and labor-intensive. It was a good experience and a good working relationship, so I would gladly do it again.
Great. Good to hear. I want to switch gears a wee bit and talk about the tools used to create your art. I wonder if you could walk me through how you do that.
Okay, well, I guess to say first off, I don't use any art software because I'm a bit of a dinosaur, and I've never been able to get into it or learn how to do it very well. I just can't Photoshop. And after I realized, well, I think this is me, I just went back to paper, and I've stayed there ever since. So when creating a comic page, first I do the messiest of thumbnails, and I usually do it right on Mark's script, right next to the script he emailed me, and then I would print it out, page 24, and then I do my messy stick figure thumbnails right next to his script. From there, I move it over to the 11 by 17 watercolor Bristol board page, and I pencil it on. After it's penciled, I send it to Mark for approval. We go back and forth until all the details are generally the way he would like them to be. And then I do I don't know if that's what it's called. It's what I call the coloring book inks. So just the basic outline, and then I erase the pencils. And you have what looks like, the inside of a coloring book, just your basic outline. From there, I then put on my layers of ink wash and coffee wash. That's time consuming because you can't do one wash and then on top of that, and then on top of that, you have to let the layers dry in between. So I'll usually have several pages on the go to allow for that drying time from one while I bounce to the other. And I can put a layer of ink wash or coffee wash, depending if you're looking at like the brown part of the painting or the gray part of the painting. Can do that about, I think, 3 times before the paper has reached a saturation point, and it just won't create any new tones or shadows. Then from there, I do the, I'm doing the big air quotes here in the air, the real inks once the painting is done. Then I do the inking on top of that. Finally, I usually do a dash of just plain old whiteout, correction fluid for the shine. It really helps to make it. And then it's done. And I always grossly underestimate how much time will go. I think, I can get this done in a day, and it always takes longer.
My goodness, that sounds like it has been a very arduous process, I guess, with all the different layers that you put on it. But I apologize. This is the first time I've heard of coffee wash. Is that something that is relatively new, or has it been around for a while?
I am sure it's been around, and I'm almost 100% certain I am not the first one nor the last one to have done it. In fact, there are several Facebook groups I've come across of coffee painter enthusiasts, but I digress. For myself, I began painting with anything I could get my hands on. And by painting, I mean like not with paint, but with liquids, like ink wash and, stuff that used the water as the carrier mostly. And I began doing that watching my father play his concerts at the Saskatchewan Jazz Festival because I really like to draw and paint while live concerts are going on. But I don't always take all the necessary art supplies and equipment with me. So I'll have my page and I'll have a brush, and I just began trying to do ink wash or water-based painting with whatever was on hand. So empty cans of beer that were nearby, someone's old pop. I got some different tones from the random liquids I'd find around, but nothing to write home about. And then I had this great idea. I thought, I bet if I painted with tea, I would get this lovely scroll-like look, right? Because of like the tannic acid, so I really pursued that, and I never could get it to look good. It was too weak. And then I started painting with a random cup of coffee that was around, and there was that nice brown weathered scroll tan beige color I was looking for. The only thing I'd add to that is never coffee with cream. just coffee, and sometimes with lots of grounds and grit in it. But I tried painting a picture with coffee that had cream in it, and it gunked up my inking pens so much. I would never do that again. Yeah. No dairy.
Okay, good advice. I was recently reading one of your interviews you did with the Emily Carr University Alumni Association. In it, you said that you wished you had done more graphic design in school. I wonder if you can comment on that.
Oh yes, back when I was at Emily Carr in Vancouver, I did anything that I could. I did all the courses I could find that had anything to do with English, literature, animation, and just drawing and illustrating. But I really shied away from all the courses they offered that had anything to do with graphic design. It did at the time. It just didn't interest me. I was into illustration and just basic drawing, and that's what I was there for. But looking back, I wish I had taken a lot more graphic design courses to make myself more commercially desirable as an artist and an illustrator. There's so much I can't do, or that I find very difficult to do on the computer and with programs. Not that I suppose I could learn, but at this point in my life, it would take so much time and energy. I wish I would have learned more when I was actually in the program that I was taking for art. I do recall anytime I was looking for a job in the arts, they all seem to have, not all, I'm being very general here, I guess, and hyperbolic, but they all seem to have like a firm grounding in, and then they'll list a catalog of different programs that you should be able to use. Different files you should be able to manipulate. And I'm reading all these and I'm thinking, I don't know how to do any of that, but I could draw you a picture. And then if you have a graphic designer on staff, they could scan it and do the things with it. And then I'm a little behind the times.
Okay. No, I can appreciate that. For your master's degree, you wrote about the Canadian national identity in comic book superheroes, which to me is quite fascinating. And I apologize for not reading it in advance of our discussion, but can you chat a wee bit about that, what that write-up was all about?
Well, that was like a full year of my life devoted to this. It was for my English master's degree, in which my supervisor in the University of Saskatchewan very kindly allowed me to write on domestically produced Canadian comic book superheroes, because I could dovetail it with my major, which is Canadian literature. Basically, I got to say, it counts, it's literature, and it was made in Canada. I chose 4 different comics to center on. We start with just going across space and time, I guess, starting in the 40s with Adrian Dingle's Nirvana of the Northern Lights, and then bouncing up to 1975 with Richard Cumley's Captain Canuck, of which I mostly focused on the first issue, but I did stick with the original run. And then bouncing up into the 80s with Mark Schoenblum and Gabriel Morset's New Triumph featuring Northgard. And then into the 2000s or the 2010s with Jay Ojik's Kagagi the Raven. This was my section, my focus of Canadian superheroes that I was going to study and try to unpack what nationalisms they did or didn't represent regarding just Canadianism. Do they represent a Canadian hero? And then, oh gosh, what even is a Canadian hero? Does Canada even have heroes? These are all the questions you're thinking, clearly Canada has heroes. Look at our superheroes. We have some. But it was the very first page from the very first Captain Canuck. And I was sitting in a coffee shop and I opened it up after picking up the back issue from one of my local comic book stores thinking, I think I'll do this. I think I'll write on these heroes. And I flipped it open. And the first thing I saw were the people on the street making fun of Captain Canuck. This was the first panel of the first issue as he's walking through, and the bystanders are yelling at him, hey, why are you wearing your jammies and whatnot? And he's supposed to be some kind of superhero. And I looked at this very first panel and I thought, uh-oh, this isn't a good start. But I was struck by that impulse. I was like, look at this. This is our first maple-leafed hero. And instantly we're just on him. Do we even believe in our own ability to have heroes? So I had a lot of fun exploring that. I should also point out, because it came up several times in my discussions with other folk in my department, that I was trying to really narrow it down to Canadian-produced Canadian hero comics, which would, take like Alpha Flight off the map.
Exactly. Yep. Well, we've talked about Siegfried Dragonslayer, and you've hinted that there might be another volume coming soon. But with that in mind, do you have any other up-and-coming projects that you can talk about?
Gosh, I wish I could say yes. I have this wonderful, exciting project coming up that I could tell you about, but I don't at present. I'm submitting artwork here and there to various academic journals. I just had an article published last year on Dante's Inferno, which also decided to publish next to it an illustration I did of Dante encountering his teacher in hell. So I'm trying to get a lot of artwork out there through the academic journal system where I can, here and there. I freelance from time to time, but there are no other major projects to speak of at the moment because I'm just I'm treading water right now. I'm trying to finish. I'm raising kids and finishing a PhD. So Every day I'm white knuckling it.
Where do you recommend people go online through social media, though, to find out about your current and your future works that'll be taking place?
I would say I have an official website. That poor website. I need to redress it up a bit. It's msminjaz.com. That's how I sign my artwork, is Minjaz. So the website is msminjaz.com, msminjaz.com, which is my art name, basically, like a pen name. And from there will be links to my Instagram, which is where I plunk down the art I'm doing as I'm doing it when I have time to do it, which is usually in the summer. I did a series of WWF wrestlers last summer.
Cool. Mm-hmm.
I was just inspired. The mood took me, and we went all the way from like Macho Man to Andre the Giant. It was fun. Yeah. If you just go to my website, it'll take you to on the About page to the various links of other things I have done or have worked on.
Thanks to Jasmine for the chat. You can discover more about Jasmine on Instagram at ms.minjaz and online at missminjaz.com. And thanks to you for listening to the True North Country Comics podcast. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to and like this podcast on Apple Podcasts. Please leave a good rating. And don't forget to check out the TrueNorthCountryComics.com website and follow along on Twitter at True North Comics. True North Country Comics is now on YouTube. Please like and subscribe to that video channel. Please send your feedback to John at TrueNorthCountryComics.com. Thanks again for listening, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. Truth Country Comics Podcast is copyright Truth Country Comics, copyright 2022.